So can you tell me if this is Marvin Jones?
You can just open the box.
Or can you just tell me if it's Marvin Jones?
Can you just open the box?
Why would I open the box when I already know it's Marvin Jones?
Because this is DFS unboxing.
Fine. So now we begin our Week 9 Daily Fantasy Unboxed lineup by picking our quarterback. We have quarterback 1, 2, and 3. Quarterback number 1, $35 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy, has thrown 3 or more touchdowns in his last 2 games. Sexy. And their opponent is the 5th worst defense versus quarterbacks this year, so you can see why this player is expensive. Quarterback number 2, $30 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy, has thrown 8 touchdown passes in the first half alone this year, and their opponent has allowed 12 total touchdowns to the quarterback position. I would say that's kind of around the middle of the league. Now, quarterback number 3 has completed 83.3% of his passes in the red zone this season. That is best. That's the best among qualified quarterbacks. You gotta love it. It's a tough one to pick. You know, I went cheap with super cheap last week with Ryan Tannehill at $22. It didn't all the way work out for me, but I liked the way the lineup was constructed. So I'm gonna go cheapest here again, and I'm going to spill my coffee, and I'm gonna pick quarterback number 3, $27, coming off their best fantasy game of the season. Let's see who we have. Oh, all right. Now, listen. Perfect. Derek Carr is one of the best streaming quarterbacks of Week 9 because he's playing the damn Detroit Lions. The Lions are trading away players in the secondary. They really don't have much of a pass rush. Injuries are rocking this entire defense. And Derek Carr coming off a really good game last week against the Texans. I think Derek Carr is a perfect value quarterback in daily fantasy. Now we move on to our running back portion, the vegetable of the fantasy lineup. You need them as a healthy base. You know, you got to eat your vegetables. You got to pick your running backs. Running back number 1, $40 flippin' in Yahoo Daily Fantasy, has scored over 30 fantasy points twice this season. Now, their opponent is the 11th best defense versus running backs in 2019, but like 11th best, that's kind of negligible, who cares? Running back number 2, a little bit better of a value here, $22 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy, has rushed for over 100 yards 3 times this season. This is frightening. Their opponent has allowed just 390 rushing yards to opposing running backs so far this year. I don't know if I like that. This resume is unappealing to me. Running back number 3 has received double-digit touches in his last 6 games, and their opponent has allowed 8 total touchdowns to the running back position. I'm gonna go value here this week at running back. I'm gonna go with our $19 player, big man with the big box. Please don't include that in the video. This is fine. Jordan Howard. It is a revenge game. You know, Jordan Howard, he's playing his old team, the Bears. The Bears have had kind of a tough time stopping the run lately. This is thin because Miles Sanders I still expect to play. Well, I feel like I f***ed up that last pick, so now I get to try to rebound here. Running back box number 1 has scored double-digit fantasy points in every game this season. That is a solid, sexy, tasty floor. Running back box number 2 has averaged 83 yards from scrimmage per game since week 4. Let's go on the very cheap side. Has 3 consecutive double-digit touch games. That sounds better than you think it does. Because I went cheap with Jordan Howard, I'm gonna spend up here for this running back, hopefully guaranteeing myself some more security and some more touches. Okay, Nick Chubb. Will not make Chubb joke, will not make Chubb joke. Still kind of the engine of the Browns offense. He's really the only one doing anything right in Cleveland this year. I think they can finally get a good quality win here against this Denver Broncos-led team by Brandon Allen. Again, you know who Brandon Allen is? I don't know who Brandon Allen is. I didn't totally love it at first, but the more I think about it, I went really risky with Jordan Howard. Chubb instills some security. You could say he stiffens up the lineup. Now we move on to what many call, or at least referred to around my house, as the best position in fantasy football, the wide receiver position. So yeah, me and Charlie really like wide receivers. Wide receiver number 1, $28 in daily fantasy. Has not eclipsed 100 yards since week 1. That's slightly problematic. Their opponent is bottom 5 in passing yards allowed, though. That's juicy. Wide receiver number 2, $24, has 3 straight double-digit target games. However, their opponent has a 59.4% completion rate allowed. That is top 3 in the NFL. Wide receiver number 3, $18. They have 75 plus yards in 3 of the past 5 games, and their opponent is allowing 19 passing touchdowns this season. I think you got to do it, right? This guy, not that appealing, to be honest. I thought this sounds good, but overall, the matchup, though, is a little problematic. I'm going to go cheap. Now I'm a little worried this is Marvin Jones. No, it can't be Marvin Jones. I don't know. Who doesn't love a good surprise? Oh, look at that. It's goddamn Marvin Jones. See, this is why I'm really smart with daily fantasy, right? Because Marvin Jones of the Detroit Lions is facing the Raiders. I have the Raiders quarterback, so I've got the stack here, the game stack. I'm running it back with Marvin Jones. Put that in your DFS glossary, you clowns. Well, I'm really feeling myself after that Marvin Jones pick. I think I'm gonna spend some big bucks in this next one, if the resumes are appealing, because that's how the segment goes. Wide receiver box number 1, $31 in daily fantasy, 100 plus yards in 4 of the last 5 games. I can already tell I'm gonna pick this player. Their opponent has allowed 30 plus points in 2 of the last 3 games. Why do I even need to read the rest of these? I'm gonna end up picking this one. Wide receiver number 2, $25 in daily fantasy. Season high in targets and yards in week 8. Ooh, who cares? Oh, $15, yeah. I'm gonna pick this $15 player. Give me a break. Averaging 100 yards in the last 2 games. Okay, this is kind of appealing, actually. Yeah, no, I already made up my mind, and when Matt Harmon makes up his mind, I don't change it. Oh, the little box. The first time for the little box. Ah, nice. Diggs is up to $31 now. I guess he has been crushing it. Remember that week against the Eagles a couple of weeks ago when I unboxed him and I was making like a puke face? And now look at it. Now we're thrilled because I'm morbidly curious. I would like to know who was that $15 player that did almost get me off my first pick here. Oh my God, thank you, Jesus. Thank God I did not pick Danny Amendola. I would have lost it. If I had to, I would have completely lost it. You almost got me, Trevor, but you didn't. Now, to everyone's least favorite position, the tight end. God, I don't want to do this. Tight end number 1, $21 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy. They have the second most fantasy points among tight ends the last 3 weeks. Their opponent allows 25 points per game over the past 5 weeks. So I think I've spent too much money to get this guy. So I'm gonna have to look at one of these 2 chuckleheads in these boxes. Tight end number 2, they are top 5 in fantasy points by tight ends this season, and their opponent allows less than 10 points per game this season. I got a feeling this is Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. This tight end has 3 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. That's interesting. But 4 or fewer targets in every game this season. How the hell am I supposed to count on a guy who's getting 4 or fewer targets in every game? I don't have enough money for this, but I don't know if I can do this. I'm gonna go with our middle guy here. If it is Mark Andrews, I'll try to sell it. You guys, how smart am I? If this game was based on guessing the players, I'd be nailing it. Yeah, he hasn't been super productive as the resume mentioned in terms of yardage, but I really like him in this game, and here's why. I'm gonna get high level here for a second in the DFS unboxing. The Patriots play a ton of man coverage. Lamar Jackson is a mobile quarterback. Mobile quarterbacks do really well to take off running against man coverage defenses because the cornerbacks, the safeties, the linebackers, they got to turn their back to the quarterback. That allows him to get some space. Lamar Jackson buying himself some time. That could really get Mark Andrews free down the field. And I think, Bill Belichick wants to take away what the offense does best. I think that is going to lead them to focus on Hollywood Brown, the deep threat who's back this week. So I think Andrews could actually be in line for a really good performance. Got to be honest, I feel kind of middling about the lineup this week, which means it'll probably be awesome. But to recap, we have Derek Carr at quarterback. We had Nick Chubb. We have Jordan Howard. Not so fine. We have Stephon Diggs, love it. Marvin Jones, like that one a lot against the Raiders, running it back with Derek Carr at quarterback. And then at tight end, we have Mark Andrews, which I tried to sell you on earlier. I don't know if you're really gonna believe it, but it is what it is. So look, it's the middle of the season. We're gonna learn a lot more about these players going forward than we have looking backwards. I bet you could have better luck building a lineup if you go to yahoo.com/dailyfantasy, enter one of our great contests where it's all about you, the people, getting a good return for your investment. and I'm sure you can play a better lineup than I just made. Just don't put Danny Amendola in it. Don't do that to yourself.